Sarah Mitchell looked like any other passenger on Flight 628 from New York to San Francisco. She wore jeans, a simple gray sweater, and sneakers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She carried only a small backpack. Nothing about her suggested she was anyone special. She checked in at the counter like everyone else. She waited in line at security. She bought coffee at a small cafe near her gate. The TSA agents didn't give her a second glance. The gate attendants barely looked at her boarding pass. She was invisible in the best possible way. Sarah found her seat in row 18, window side. She placed her backpack under the seat in front of her and buckled in. The middle seat was empty. A businessman in an expensive suit sat in the aisle seat, already typing on his laptop. As the plane filled up, Sarah watched the other passengers. She noticed everything. The nervous flyer gripping her armrest. The mother struggling with two small children. The college student with headphones already on. The elderly couple holding hands. Sarah's eyes moved constantly, but her face remained calm and neutral. The businessman glanced at her once, smiled politely, then returned to his work. Perfect. That was exactly what Sarah wanted. To be noticed just enough to seem normal, but not enough to be remembered. What the businessman didn't know, what nobody on that plane knew, was that Sarah Mitchell wasn't just an ordinary passenger. Her real name was Captain Rachel Stone, and she was one of the most skilled fighter pilots in the United States Air Force. Her call sign was Viper, and she had flown more combat missions than most pilots would fly in their entire careers. 6 months ago, Rachel had been flying classified missions in the Middle East. She had shot down enemy aircraft, protected ground troops, and completed reconnaissance missions deep in hostile territory. She had received medals that couldn't be displayed publicly and commendations that would never appear in any official record. But 3 months ago, everything changed. Rachel witnessed something during a classified operation, something that powerful people wanted to keep secret. When she refused to stay silent, they tried to silence her permanently. An accident was arranged during a training mission. Her plane was supposed to crash. She was supposed to die. But Rachel survived. She ejected seconds before impact and disappeared. The Air Force declared her dead. They held a funeral with an empty coffin. They gave her family a folded flag. And Rachel Stone ceased to exist. Now she was Sarah Mitchell, living under a false identity, trying to stay alive long enough to expose the truth about what she had seen. The backpack under her seat contained a hard drive with evidence that could bring down several high-ranking military officials. She was flying to San Francisco to meet a journalist who could help her tell the story. She just needed to survive the flight. An hour into the flight, everything seemed normal. The plane had reached cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign was off. Flight attendants moved through the aisles with drinks and snacks. Most passengers were reading, watching movies, or sleeping. Rachel stared out the window at the clouds below. Her mind was focused on the meeting in San Francisco. She had memorized every detail of the plan. Where to meet. What to say. How to stay safe. After 3 months of hiding, she was finally going to. The plane shuddered. It was subtle. Most passengers didn't notice. But Rachel felt it immediately. Her training kicked in. Something was wrong with the aircraft. She waited. Listening. Feeling. The engines sounded normal. The flight was smooth. Maybe it was just turbulence. Then it happened again. Stronger this time. The plane shook for several seconds. Overhead bins rattled. A few passengers looked up nervously. The intercom crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing some minor turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Flight attendants, please be seated. Rachel's eyes narrowed. That wasn't turbulence. She had flown through turbulence hundreds of times. This was different. This was mechanical. The businessman in the aisle seat looked worried. Is it just me, or does that feel worse than normal turbulence? Rachel kept her voice calm. I'm sure everything is fine. The pilots know what they're doing. But inside, her instincts screamed that something was very wrong. 5 minutes later, the plane shuddered violently. Passengers gasped. Someone screamed. Luggage shifted in the overhead bins. The plane tilted to the left, then corrected sharply. The intercom came on again. This time, Rachel heard the tension in the captain's voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a mechanical issue. We're going to divert to the nearest airport. Please remain calm and follow all instructions from the flight attendants. Panic rippled through the cabin. Parents grabbed their children. People started praying. The businessman's hands shook as he gripped his armrest. Rachel stayed perfectly still. Her mind raced through possibilities. Engine failure. Hydraulic problems. Control surface damage. Whatever it was serious. The plane shook again, harder. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Flight attendants rushed through the aisles, helping passengers put them on. The businessman fumbled with his mask, breathing hard. Rachel put on her mask calmly, then noticed the elderly woman across the aisle struggling with hers. Rachel unbuckled, crossed the aisle quickly, and helped the woman secure the mask. Breathe normally, Rachel said. Everything will be okay. The woman's eyes were full of tears. Are we going to crash? Rachel looked her directly in the eyes. The pilots are trained for this. They know what to do. But as Rachel returned to her seat, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Through the thin cockpit door, she could hear the pilots talking on the radio. Their voices were urgent, stressed. Losing hydraulic pressure in all systems. Flight controls not responding properly. Need immediate clearance for emergency landing. Rachel's military training took over. She analyzed the situation with cold precision. Multiple hydraulic failures. Control problems. This wasn't just a mechanical issue. This was a catastrophic emergency. If the pilots couldn't regain control, everyone on this plane would die. The plane pitched violently downward. Passengers screamed. Luggage exploded from overhead bins. The businessman was thrown against his seatbelt, crying out in pain. Rachel made a decision. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. The plane was shaking so badly she had to grab seat backs to stay on her feet. A flight attendant saw her moving. Ma'am. You need to sit down immediately. Rachel kept moving toward the cockpit. I'm a pilot. I can help. Ma'am, return to your seat now. Rachel reached the cockpit door and pounded on it. I'm a military pilot. Let me in. The door opened a crack. A flight attendant stood there, her face pale with fear. You can't be in here. I have emergency aviation experience, Rachel said firmly. I need to speak to the captain. The flight attendant hesitated, then made a decision. She opened the door. Rachel stepped into the cockpit. The two pilots, a captain and first officer, were fighting with the controls. Warning lights covered the instrument panel. Alarms were blaring. Who are you? The captain demanded without looking back. Captain, I'm a passenger with military flight experience. What's your status? We don't have time for this, the first officer snapped. We're about to lose this plane. Rachel moved closer and scanned the instruments. Her trained eyes took in everything in seconds. You have hydraulic failure in all 3 systems. Your backup isn't engaging. Flight controls are running on mechanical reversion only. The captain finally looked at her. His eyes were wide with stress. How do you know that? Because I'm a fighter pilot with the United States Air Force, Rachel said. And I've trained for emergencies like this. Let me help. The captain and first officer exchanged a quick glance. They had nothing to lose. What do you suggest? Rachel pointed at the hydraulic panel. Try cycling the backup pumps manually. The automatic system might be failed, but manual control might still work. The first officer's hands flew across the controls. Cycling pumps, wait. I'm getting partial pressure in System B. Good, Rachel said. Now reduce your airspeed. You need to give the manual controls more authority. And start looking for a long runway. You're going to need every foot of it. The captain was already on the radio. Denver Center, this is United 628. We have partial hydraulic recovery but still in emergency status. Requesting immediate vector to Denver International. We need the longest runway available. United 628, Denver Center copies. Turn right heading 090. Descend and maintain 15,000. Emergency equipment will be standing by. As the crippled airliner limped toward Denver, a message went out on military frequencies. A civilian aircraft was in distress, and the Air Force was launching fighters to provide assistance. At Buckley Air Force Base, just outside Denver, two F-22 Raptor pilots ran to their aircraft. Major Tom Harrison and Captain Michelle Rodriguez had been on standby alert. Within 3 minutes, both fighters were screaming down the runway. Viper 1 and 2, you are cleared for immediate departure, the tower said. Proceed to assist United 628, Boeing 737 in distress approximately 60 miles northwest of Denver. Tom pushed his throttles forward, and the powerful F-22 leaped into the sky. Michelle was right beside him. Viper 2 is with you, she said. Copy that, Tom replied. Let's find this bird and see what we can do. As they climbed through 20,000 feet, Tom switched to the emergency frequency. United 628, this is Air Force Viper 1. 2 F-22s coming up on your 6 o'clock. We're here to help. What's your status? In the cockpit of the airliner, the captain responded. Viper 1, United 628. We have multiple hydraulic failures and limited flight control. We have a passenger on board, claims to be Air Force, who's helping us manage the emergency. Tom's eyebrows rose. A passenger? Copy that, United 628. Can we speak to this passenger? Rachel took the radio. Viper 1, this is the passenger assist. I've helped restore partial hydraulic pressure and we're maintaining controlled flight. Recommend you establish escort position and provide visual confirmation of our control surface status. Tom listened to the calm, professional voice. Something about it was familiar. Passenger assist, Roger. We'll move in for visual inspection. Can you tell us your aviation background? Rachel hesitated. She had spent 3 months hiding her identity. But 200 people were depending on her now. She had to make a choice. Viper 1, she said slowly, this is Viper 7. In his cockpit, Tom's hands froze on the controls. Viper 7. That was a call sign. A specific call sign that belonged to. Holy shit, Michelle breathed over the intercom. Did she just say Viper 7? Tom's mind raced. Viper 7 was Captain Rachel Stone. One of the best fighter pilots in the Air Force. But Viper 7 was dead. Killed in a training accident 3 months ago. Tom had been at her funeral. Say again, passenger assist, Tom said carefully. Did you say Viper 7? Affirmative, Viper 1. This is Viper 7. And before you ask, yes, it's really me. Michelle pulled her F-22 alongside the airliner. She could see the damaged control surfaces, the smoking engine. But her mind was on that voice. Tom, Viper 7 is supposed to be dead. I know, Tom said quietly. Then, on the radio, Viper 7, this is Viper 1. We thought you were Kia. Long story, Viper 1. Right now, we need to focus on getting this plane down safely. Can you confirm visual on our flight controls? Tom forced himself to focus. Questions could wait. Roger that, Viper 7. We see damage to your right horizontal stabilizer and your number 2 engine is trailing smoke. You're going to have a challenging landing. Understood, Rachel replied. Viper 1, I need you to contact Denver approach and make sure they clear all traffic. We're going to need a straight-in approach with no complications. Already on it, Tom confirmed. He switched frequencies. Denver approach, this is Air Force Viper 1. United 628 requires priority handling. Clear all traffic from their approach path and have maximum emergency equipment standing by. Inside the airliner, Rachel worked with the pilots to prepare for landing. The plane was barely controllable. Every adjustment required intense physical effort. The captain's arms shook with exhaustion. I can't hold her much longer, he said through gritted teeth. You're doing great, Captain, Rachel said. Just a few more minutes. Viper 1, what's our distance to Denver International? Viper 7, you're 25 miles out. Denver approach is clearing the runway now. Rachel turned to the first officer. Start configuring for landing. Flaps to 5 degrees. Carefully. The first officer moved the flap lever. The plane shuddered as the flaps extended partially. Flaps at 5. I'm not getting normal extension. That's okay, Rachel said. We'll land with partial flaps. It means higher speed, but this runway is long enough. The captain looked at her with desperate hope. You've done this before. Rachel nodded. I've landed damaged aircraft. Different circumstances, but the principles are the same. Trust your training, stay calm, and fly the airplane all the way to the ground. Outside, Tom and Michelle escorted the struggling airliner. They could see emergency vehicles lining the runway below. Fire trucks, ambulances, dozens of flashing lights. Viper 7, you're looking good, Tom reported. 10 miles to touchdown. Runway is clear. In the cabin, passengers prayed, cried, and held each other. The businessman who had sat next to Rachel was gripping his armrest so hard his knuckles were white. The elderly woman across the aisle had her eyes closed, moving her lips in silent prayer. 5 miles, Tom called. You're on glide path. Looking good. The captain fought the controls as the runway appeared ahead. Landing gear down. The first officer pulled the gear lever. There was a grinding sound, then 3 green lights. Gear down and locked. 2 miles, Tom said. Stay with it. Rachel stood behind the pilots, her hands ready to help if needed. She watched the runway grow larger. The plane was coming in fast, much faster than normal. But they would make it. 1 mile. 500 feet. The plane descended toward the runway. The captain's hands were steady despite his exhaustion. Come on, come on. The wheels touched down hard. The plane bounced once, then settled. The captain immediately reversed thrust on the working engine and stood on the brakes. Fire trucks raced alongside, spraying foam on the hot brakes. The plane slowed. And slowed. And finally, 3/4 of the way down the runway, it stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the cabin erupted in cheers, sobs, and prayers of thanks. The captain sagged in his seat, exhausted. He turned to Rachel with tears in his eyes. Thank you. You saved everyone on this plane. Rachel smiled. You did the flying, Captain. I just helped. Emergency crews swarmed the aircraft. Passengers evacuated down inflatable slides. Ambulances waited for anyone who needed medical attention. News helicopters circled overhead. Rachel helped evacuate passengers, making sure everyone got off safely. When the plane was empty, she finally stepped out into the chaos of the emergency response. And found herself face to face with Tom Harrison and Michelle Rodriguez. Both F-22 pilots had landed and were waiting at the bottom of the evacuation slide. They stared at Rachel like they were seeing a ghost. "Viper 7, Tom said quietly. "Rachel. We went to your funeral." Rachel looked at her former squadron mates. She had flown with both of them dozens of times. They had been friends. And she had let them believe she was dead for 3 months. "I'm sorry," Rachel said. "I had to disappear." "Why?" Michelle demanded. "What happened?" "The official report said your plane had mechanical failure during a training mission." Rachel glanced around. Emergency responders were everywhere, but nobody was paying attention to 3 people talking. It wasn't mechanical failure. It was sabotage. Someone tried to kill me because of something I saw during a classified operation. Tom's eyes widened. "What did you see?" "I can't tell you here," Rachel said. "But I have proof. Evidence that some very powerful people don't want coming out. That's why I'm alive, barely, and that's why I've been hiding." Before they could ask more questions, a group of men in dark suits approached. They had the unmistakable look of federal agents. "Sarah Mitchell," the lead agent said, using Rachel's false name. "We need you to come with us." Rachel's hand moved instinctively toward where her weapon would have been if she were in uniform. But she was unarmed. Vulnerable. "Who are you?" "Defense Intelligence Agency. We have questions about what happened on that plane." Tom stepped forward. "She just saved 200 lives. Whatever questions you have can wait." The agent's expression didn't change. "This is a matter of national security. She needs to come with us. Now." Rachel looked at Tom and Michelle. She saw the confusion and concern in their eyes. They wanted to help her, but they didn't understand what was happening. "It's okay," Rachel said. "I'll go with them." "Rachel," Michelle started. "Trust me," Rachel said. Then, to the agents, "I'll come with you. But I want witnesses. These 2 pilots stay with me." The lead agent considered, then nodded. "Fine. Let's go." They were taken to a secure room in a military building near the airport. The lead agent, who introduced himself as Special Agent Matthews, sat across from Rachel. Tom and Michelle stood against the wall, arms crossed. "Let's start with the obvious question," Matthews said. "You're Captain Rachel Stone, United States Air Force. You were declared dead 3 months ago. Yet here you are, alive, flying under a false identity. Why?" Rachel met his gaze steadily. "Because someone in the military tried to kill me. When that failed, I knew I had to disappear or they would try again." "Who tried to kill you?" "I don't know their names. But I know why. 6 months ago, I was flying reconnaissance missions in the Middle East. During one mission, I discovered evidence of a weapons deal. American military equipment being sold to hostile forces. Not by terrorists or foreign agents, by American officers." Matthew's expression didn't change, but Rachel saw his hand tighten slightly on his pen. "That's a serious accusation. I have proof." Rachel reached slowly for her backpack, moving carefully so nobody would think she was reaching for a weapon. "On a hard drive in this bag. I was taking it to a journalist in San Francisco who could help me expose it." "Why not take it through official channels?" Matthews asked. "Because I tried that. I reported what I saw to my commanding officer. 2 days later, someone tampered with my aircraft. The mechanics who checked my plane before that flight said everything was perfect. But the flight recorder showed clear evidence of sabotage. Someone wanted me dead, and they had access to my aircraft." Tom spoke up from the wall. "I was the one who reviewed the accident report. It was classified as mechanical failure. But I remember thinking some of the evidence didn't add up. Because it was covered up, Rachel said. Someone with enough power to alter accident reports and silence investigations. Matthews was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a phone and made a call. He spoke quietly, then hung up. Someone wants to meet you. 20 minutes later, a woman in an Air Force general's uniform entered the room. She had gray hair, sharp eyes, and the bearing of someone who commanded respect. Tom and Michelle immediately stood at attention. At ease, the general said. She looked at Rachel. Captain Stone. Or should I say, Sarah Mitchell. I'm General Patricia Webb, Air Force Special Investigations. I've been looking for you for 3 months. Rachel tensed. To finish the job. To protect you, General Webb said. We know about the sabotage. We've been investigating the weapons deal you discovered. But we needed proof, hard evidence that would hold up. When you disappeared, we thought you were dead. We had no way to find you. So you believe me? Captain Stone, you're not the only one who noticed irregularities. We've had suspicions for months. But the people involved are high-ranking, well-connected, and very careful. We needed someone with direct evidence. General Webb looked at the backpack. Is that the hard drive? Rachel nodded slowly. Video footage, communication intercepts, financial records. Everything I collected during my missions. General Webb held out her hand. May I see it? Rachel hesitated. This could be a trap. But she was tired of running. Tired of hiding. She had to trust someone. She pulled out the hard drive and handed it to the general. General Webb plugged it into a laptop and spent 10 minutes reviewing files. Her expression grew darker with each passing minute. Finally, she closed the laptop. Captain Stone, this evidence shows weapons deals involving 2 generals, a defense contractor, and at least 6 other officers. This goes all the way to the Pentagon. She looked up. You're a very brave woman. And a very lucky one. These people have killed to protect this secret. What happens now? Rachel asked. Now we finish what you started. This evidence will be turned over to the proper authorities. The people responsible will be arrested and prosecuted. And you, Captain Stone, will be reinstated to active duty with full honors. Rachel felt something she hadn't felt in 3 months, hope. I can come back. You never should have left, General Webb said. You did everything right. You reported what you saw. And when they tried to silence you, you survived and gathered evidence. That takes courage. The Air Force needs pilots like you. Tom spoke up. General, with respect, if Captain Stone returns to active duty, she'll be a target. The people involved in this still have resources, contacts. Which is why Captain Stone will be assigned to a new unit under my direct command, General Webb said. She'll have protection until this is resolved. And once the arrests are made, there won't be anyone left to threaten her. 3 weeks later, Rachel stood in an Air Force courtroom. She was back in uniform, her captain's bars polished and bright. Across the room sat 2 generals and 4 colonels, all facing charges of conspiracy, weapons trafficking, and attempted murder. Rachel testified for 2 days. She presented her evidence, answered questions from prosecutors and defense attorneys, and never wavered. The hard drive she had risked everything to protect became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. When the verdicts came down, all 6 defendants were found guilty. They would spend the rest of their lives in military prison. After the trial, Rachel stood outside the courthouse. Tom and Michelle walked up, both smiling. Congratulations, Viper 7, Tom said. Justice served. Thanks to you too, Rachel said. If you hadn't been flying escort that day, you would have saved that plane anyway, Michelle interrupted. You're the best pilot I know, Rachel. Dead or alive? Rachel laughed. It felt good to laugh again. So what's next for you two? Back to regular duty, Tom said. Training missions, patrol flights, the usual. What about you? General Webb offered me a position as an instructor pilot. Teaching the next generation of fighter pilots. Rachel smiled. I think I'll take it. It'll be nice to fly without people shooting at me for a while. You earned it, Michelle said. She saluted. Welcome back, Captain Stone. Rachel returned the salute. Then she pulled both of them into a hug. Thank you. For believing me. For helping me. For being there when I needed you. That's what squadron mates do, Tom said. 6 months later, Rachel sat in the cockpit of an F-22 Raptor at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. She was taking a student pilot on a training flight, teaching advanced combat maneuvers to a young lieutenant fresh from flight school. Remember, Rachel said over the intercom, it's not about having the fastest plane or the biggest weapons. It's about making the right decisions under pressure. About staying calm when everything goes wrong. Yes, ma'am, the lieutenant replied. Now let's see what you can do. Take us through the combat scenario. As the young pilot began the training exercise, Rachel looked out at the sky. Clear and blue, stretching to infinity. She had almost died defending the truth. She had spent months hiding, afraid, alone. But she had survived. And now she was back where she belonged. In the sky. Teaching others. Doing what she loved. The call sign, Viper 7, was back on active duty. The ordinary passenger from Flight 628 had returned to extraordinary service. The American passenger who had saved 200 lives had reclaimed her place among the heroes who protect the nation from above.